Oh my goodness sakes. Um, so we're looking at right now. Please remember to subscribe, hit the thumbs up, engage on the video. Um, okay. We are looking at some of the briefings in today's video, and maybe we'll be seeing them. Bryan Kohberger is sentenced to life in prison for the murder of Idaho college students. Judge denies request to unseal Epstein grand jury transcripts. Let's see, what else have we got here? Pete Davidson says it's his dream to become a dad after Elsie Hewitt's pregnancy. Okay, Bryan Kohberger. Oh, let's sing the bad news, so we'll make it sound happier. Bryan Kohberger is sentenced to life in prison for the murders of Idaho college students. Okay, here. Okay, Oakley Dokley. Oakley Dokley, Oakley Dokley, okay, okay, oh, okay, 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 oh, okay, okay, oh, okay, 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 okay. Let's see. We're trying to make the bad news sound good by singing the bad news. Top UN court says the countries must act on climate change. Kilmar, Abrego, Garcia, lawyers. Well, hello, Maddie Levine. Maddie Levine, hello. Maddie Levine, hello. Google Photos adds AI features for remixing photos in different styles. Starlink powered T satellite service is now on T-Mobile. So if you're new, please subscribe, hit that thumbs up button. And so I've got some short videos. If you guys want to watch my shorts, I surely would appreciate it. Ozzy Osbourne died at the age of 76. Farewell to Ozzy. Farewell, Ozzy Osbourne. Ozzy Osbourne. Farewell. Goodbye. So long. Farewell. Goodbye, 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 so long, farewell, goodbye, so long, farewell, goodbye, goodbye. We made more than 1,000 pizzas to find the best pizza ovens. Who knew you could sing about pizza ovens? But we sure can. Um, so yes, I would love it if you guys would subscribe. Um, okay, so I don't want to push it too much. The uh oh, 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 okay, 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 oh, okay, okay, oh, Oakley dokley, bokely dokley. The Dow jumps 400 points. The S&P 500 hits another record as Trump hatches trade deals. U.S. existing home sales hit 9-month low in June. I have to wonder why. why can't people afford to buy a house or rent an apartment? Dear President, oh President, I'm singing a solo. I'm going to sing a solo. Solo, 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 solo. I'm singing solo, solo. I'm singing solo, 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 solo. I'm singing a solo. Solo, 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 solo. I'm singing a solo. Solo, solo, solo. How low can you go? How low can you go? I'm singing a solo. Solo, solo. How low can you go? Solo, solo. How low can you go? I'm singing a solo. Solo, solo, how low can you go? How low can you go? Solo, solo, how low can you go? How low can you go? Solo, 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 how low can you go? How low can you go? Solo, solo, solo. Or should we do how high can we go? Solo, solo, how high can we go? Solo, solo. I'm going to tell you. We're going to we're mustering up the opposing solo. How high can you go? So high, solo, so high, solo, so high, so high. How high can you go? So high, solo. How low can you go? So low, so low. How low can you go? So low, so low. How high can you go? How high, how high can you go? How high, so low, so low, so low, so. I would have had fun being a drill sergeant. I would have had a lot of fun being a drill sergeant. How low can you go? So low, so low. How low can you go? So low, so low. How low can you go? So low, so low. How low can you go? So low, so low. How high can you go? How high, how high can you go? How high, so low, so low. Now, remember, Blue Angels has the opposing solo. So low, how low can you go? So low, how low can you go? So low. Now, how many of you have ever drank out of the red Solo cup? Because I'm telling you, at one point on the YouTube videos, we had the red Solo cup. The red Solo cup. Any of you know you've had a lot of fun with red Solo cups on YouTube. How low can you go? How low, how low can you go? So low, how low can you go? So low, how low can you go? So low. Please have mercy on the dog. What dog are we talking about? Pray do tell me which dog we're talking about. How low can you go? So low, how low can you go? So low, how high can you go? How high, how high can you go? How high, how high, how low can you go? So low, how low can you go? So low, how high can you go? How high, how high can you go? How high, hi ho, it's off to home we go. La na 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 na, how high, so low. Okay, let's see. Spare him. Well, actually, I'm going to tell you this. The dog is doing nothing but singing. That's all he's doing is singing with me. So when I sing and I sound terrible, we sound more terrible together because he really loves to sing. He loves to, but the thing is, I can't encourage him too much because of my current situation, and so I don't need him singing with me. And so that's why I discourage him from singing with me right now, even though I know that he totally loves to sing. I mean, most dogs love to sing. How low can you go? How low, how low, how low can you go? How low, how low? How high can you go? How high, how high, how high can you go? How high, how high, how low can you go? How low, how... Well, I'd have to do it slower if I was a drill sergeant. How slow can you go? How slow, how slow, how slow can you go? How slow, how slow, how slow can you go? How slow, how slow, how slow can you go? How slow, how slow, how slow can you go? How slow, how slow? How high can you go? How high, how high, how high can you go? How high, how high, how slow can you go? How slow, how slow, how low can you go? How low, how high, how high, hi ho, how slow, how low, how low, how low, so low, how high, how high can you go? My dog likes to run after birds. Dogs scare them. Have the bigger dogs realize that he's tiny and then start being chased. I'm not in a situation for that to take place because of everything that you guys don't want to listen to that I've been censored for on YouTube. And then someone's deployed a bunch of children to my channel. And so it's like, if you're going to deploy kids to my channel and a bunch of shitty ass people from Hollywood, I'm just going to do my own entertaining. I mean, so because that's the stuff they do in Hollywood, being shitty to those of us on YouTube. So that's what I'm doing, is entertaining um, the entertainment, I guess. I mean, they're coming over here being crappy to those of us on YouTube. And so, yeah, I'm entertaining the bad entertainment, the bad actors in Hollywood. How high can you go? How high, how high, how high can you go? How high, how high, how low can you go? So low, how low can you go? So low, how high can you go? How high, how high can you go? How high, how low can you go? So low, so low, how high can you go? How high, how high can you go? How high, how low can you go? How low, so low. How high can you go? How high, this high, how high, this high, how high. Okay. Okay, so you put up like an Aztec looking guy or something like that, and I can barely see it. Let me see what it is. It looks like a Mayan. Oh, Christmas Island? That's what it kind of looks like, is one of those rocks from Christmas Island. What is Maui? Maui? Like, kind of like Hawaii? Maui? Was Maui from that... What in the world was that show? I can't remember the name of it. There was a movie. And I remember it being from... Oh, it was a kid's movie. Mowgli or something like that. I don't exactly remember. But that's what it made me think of. Mowgli and... Okay. Protectors. The Protectors. Wait a sec. Oh, the pocket protectors? Like the ink pen pocket protectors? Is that what we're talking about? Or Or the carpet protectors, like you're talking about the copper carpet protectors. Um, I'm not sure what we're talking about. How high can you go? How high? How fast can you go? How fast? How fast? How low can you go? So low, so low, so low, so low. How low can you go? How fast can you go? How fast? How fast? How fast can you go? How fast? How fast? So low, so low. How low can you go? So low, so low, so low can you go? That's bro's name, not what I typed. XD. How low can you go? How low, how low, how low can you go? How low, how low, how high can you go? How high can you go? How low can you go? So low, so low, how low can you go? So low, so low. How high can you go? How high? How high can you go? How high? How low can you go? So low, so low. How low can you go? So low, so low. Let's see, what else have we got? So what came up next to my video, it said stop. Now I'm confused because what came up next to my video was this other video today. So I was watching another video and it said stop trying to let go. That's not how it works. So everybody for the past 4 years has been telling me, let go of everything, just let go of it, just let go. You don't worry about it. And now, out of the blue, there's another video that says, stop trying to let go. That's not how it works. Now, I knew that. I knew that when I had people telling me to let go of things that I wasn't that I was having a very hard time struggling. Now that you've got me, I've completely forgot about everything that was causing me pain in my life, which unfortunately now in the future, if something bad happens again, it's going to push me into a deeper depression because that is how it works. So when you want to force someone to forget about bad, tragic things that have happened to them, and then they're in another bad situation, then it tends to creep back in is even worse than what it was before when you tell them just to forget about things. Forget about it, to just let it go. And a lot of people are told to forget about the past. Whereas at the same time, there's others who say, well, if you forget about the past, then you're doomed to repeat what's going on. So here in Pakistan, it's 1:07 a.m. and I was in stress, so I decided to take tea at the hotel and take some chicken tikka with bread. You were live, so I joined in. Thank you. Nice live session. Thank you. Thank you for the... yeah, this is interesting that how low can you go? Now we could sing this at the Egyptian pyramids too. How low can you go? How low, how low, how low can you go? How low can you go? How high can you go? How high, how low can you go in the tunnel below? How low can you go in the tunnel below to see the king buried in the castle, king buried in the pyramid? How low can you... I am making up my own words. I'm making up my own song. That's what I'm doing. How low can you go? How low in the pyramid where the king Tut is buried? Below, so low, below, so low, so low. Drive slow, so low, so low. Drive slow is slow, drive slow and poke a slow poke in the where, and no we don't, we won't drive fast, we will drive slow, drive slow, drive slow, drive slow. I'm chanting. So I'm carrying my chant on from this morning because I did some church this morning. I did a Holy Rosary church. My other live stream, I did a Holy Rosary church because the other church folks were doing a Holy Rosary. And so I thought, well, I'm going to just do some things. I think each line must be bigger to be repeated or it ends up sounding monotone. Well, isn't monotone is more like Monotone is speaking in just one tone. This is monotone. We don't change tones. Monotone is one tone. No changes in the voice at all. We speak in one tone only, and we don't speak in any other tone with no voice deflections at all. Let's see. Vinicius, Mr. Luckman says, I think each line. Oh, okay, I already read that part. You write very well for being in Pakistan. Well, what I mean is that I like monotone, and it looked afar. It just seems to be a single thing. Oh, I thought you said you were from Pakistan. Who was the person who said they're from? Oh, Farhan Mustafa Ansari is in Pakistan. Farhan Mustafa Ansari. Well, that's what I meant. Okay, I get you guys confused sometimes. Vinicius has a face, he looks like he's maybe about 12 years old or so. And so I get you guys confused. Because it's really hard to see. That's why I get you confused. It's really hard to see. Okay, Pegasus Publishers. We are accepting submissions. Now, I'm always worried about submitting something to a publisher because they accept submissions. So you give them something for free related to what you're writing, and then they can just tell you no. So you've already made your submission. What do they do with the work? I bet they don't destroy it. I bet they keep it and do something else with it. Don't you think? That's what I kind of think. I mean, that's a bad practice if that's what they do. Oh, it's a book. Yeah, so you submit book ideas to a publisher, and then they use that, or they use bits and pieces of it, and they just, so you did the work, and then you're going to get rejected when you submit it to a publisher online. You're going to get rejected because I know when I was taking pictures, I submitted a picture to some of the picture websites, and they told me that I was framing my work, and they said they needed works that weren't framed. And I'm like, what in the world are they talking about? Because I wasn't framing my work. Are you streaming to TikTok? And no, I'm not streaming to TikTok that I know of. I don't have the ability to multicast to multiple places. I just don't. So I can't live stream to TikTok. Only YouTube. Yes, that's the only place I'm live streaming is to YouTube. Because I don't have the ability to do multicasting with my phone. And so the other people that are doing their live streaming, they are actually using other streaming platforms. So what they do is they hook up to I don't know. There was some guy that said something about a platform called OBS or something like that. But with OBS, what he was saying is that they can see what your name is. So OBS apparently opens up. Yeah, they get OBS. And so he was saying that they can see the name of the people that are chatting. So there's something baked into OBS where they can see the name of the YouTube channels of the people. And they actually will use your name in chat. When they're using OBS, they will use your name in chat. They will use your full name in chat. And I think that's disturbing that they can do that. OBS is free, and you can generate a code and start a stream from there. I don't want to use OBS. I mean, I like what YouTube does. You know, we've never had the ability from YouTube to multicast in places. That's something I think more that Legacy Media does. And so I mean, TikTok is okay. TikTok is very, very similar to YouTube in many, many ways. They have a lot of things that are similar. The truth is, I like TikTok. I just didn't like the antagonistic content creators. Um, and I didn't like OBS is okay. There's no problem with it. Well, I can't even live stream to TikTok anyway. I don't have 1,000 followers. I would need 1,000 followers, and it might take a long time, and I just don't want to do that. That's a lot of work. And I'm not sure, if I was live streaming to TikTok, those views, I don't know if the views on TikTok are going to count for YouTube anyway. Would my views on TikTok platform count on YouTube? I don't know. I know I would get them. I'm not going to be getting double views to YouTube. I'm going to get views that are on TikTok. That's one platform. Views on YouTube, that's another platform. So it is kind of double dipping on two different platforms. Um, and then trying to see which platform takes off and does better than the other one. But I know TikTok doesn't pay. TikTok just does not pay any money. They are multi-level marketing, which means they are asking their followers to pay them to watch them. And it's like, why would I want to pay a person to sit there and sleep? There's people who are making sleep videos, and that's what they're doing, is sleeping. Now, why do I want to pay a person to watch them sleep? Can anybody rationalize that for me? Why do I want to pay someone to watch them sleep? I don't want to do that. Now, there was a lovely young man on YouTube, and I believe he was in a wheelchair. This was maybe about a couple months ago that I was watching. Very lovely, nice, and kind young man. And so he was coming out talking about stuff, and I think he had a caretaker with him. And so his caretaker would help him set up things. Or actually, he knew more about it than the caretaker did, because he was telling the caretaker how he wanted things to be. And so one night, I had subscribed to him for a little bit, but I turn it on, and here he is in his wheelchair sleeping. And it's like, why do I want to watch? I mean, if someone's going to have a conversation about something, a real conversation about something, otherwise it's like, okay, so you guys, I mean, and I don't care if people are actually sleeping in their videos. That's their business if that's what they want to do. But I'm just suggesting that it might not be a conversation. What conversation is there that we are having if you're sleeping in your wheelchair? I'm just asking that question. What conversation are we having? And so I kind of like to present a place. I think sleeping live streams are wrong. I actually don't think they're completely wrong. It's just I find it strange, because what is the purpose? I mean, that's the thing I always ask. What is the purpose of why you're doing what you're doing? So there's people who are just in front of the camera and they're sleeping. So why is that? Why are they doing that? Because it's unlikely that anyone is going to be watching it that much. They're going to tune in, and they're going to look at the video, and they're going to say, okay, this person is sleeping. We're not going to get much of a conversation here, because a lot of people are lonely right now. I will tell you that right now. A lot of people are very lonely. They want someone to talk to. They want someone who, they want someone to have a real nitty-gritty, meaty conversation with, who is not going to censor them, and who is going to allow them to talk about things and discuss real life's issues. I mean, that's where my brain is at with me anyway. And I know that there's a lot of other people who are feeling the same way right now too, because I've heard them. It's just that not everybody is on the internet. So a lot of people want to meet other people in real life and have conversations, but there's a lot of people in real life who are not ready for having real conversations, because they're afraid of the confrontations that have taken place over the past several years related to the civil disobedience, which I believe is coming out of the lefty movement, and it's also coming out of the lefty TV, which is why they're kind of getting in trouble right now, isn't it? Because they created this movement of antagonism and just being mean to people. That's exactly what they did. The lefty TV has destroyed a political party, and they've destroyed their own TV shows too. because we don't want to hear them. We just don't. We don't want to hear them. We want to talk about real issues that are important. And, so I will go into politics. However, a lot of people don't want to talk about it. And I lose viewers then if I talk about it too much. Unfortunately, that's just what's happening. And, it's like, I don't mind talking about it every once in a while. But, there's a lot of people who don't want to hear about it all the time. They want to break from it. So if you're talking about politics all the time, people are going to get burnt out. So I'm not literally talking about politics right now. I'm talking about the burnout factor. Now, the burnout factor, it does not matter what genre you do on YouTube. It does not matter what topic you do on YouTube. If you do one topic only all the time, you will burn out. I guarantee it. You will burn out doing one topic only. There's going to be a period of time where you burn out. And when I say burn out, that means you are so bored of the topic that you are doing. You need to have, it's kind of like people who have a job and they burn out on their job because they're talking about the same thing all the time. So that's kind of like church. I've always wondered, I thought, don't pastors burn out? Because I was thinking church is very, very boring. Even though people don't mind singing stuff, but when you sing the same song over and over again all the time, it gets boring. And so they tend to play the music on the radio station. They play the same song on the radio station over and over again until people get burnt out of the song. A single topic only will define burnout, but also builds a base of subscribers that will just stop to watch that. Well, you're right. I do have a start of several single topics on my channel right now. And that's what I'm trying to do, is have a base of multiple topics on my channel. That's what I'm trying to build, is a base of multiple topics on my channel that is not just one topic only, because because a lot of people like me have expressed, well, in the summertime we end up with a slowdown of content, even though the children's channels, on the other hand, have had a rise in content. And it's like, well, why is it that these other channels, they actually continue to go up higher during the summertime? So I know that you guys want to do one topic only because you have built your channels around one topic only. Now, those of us in the smaller niches, we've already lost our revenue and we've lost our channels. And so why would we want to do one topic only? And I know there's a lot of other people who have expressed the same thing I have. Lightstar, one thing, do you think that elections are about choosing the least worst president or choosing the best president? Um, I, well, okay, I'll give you an analogy. Now, George W. Bush, it was about electing a man who was going to try to take the needs of the country. It has nothing to do with the worst or the best. I think elections are about electing someone who has integrity, character, and is willing to go after tough subjects and topics. Worst and best has nothing to do with it. I think elections are about George W. Bush, they said he was an average student. He got C's. And I was so happy to hear that as an adult. I was very happy to hear that. I thought, my goodness, He was a C student because I couldn't get good grades when I was in high school. I got lousy grades when I was in high school. My country is about choosing the least worst president at this point. Yeah, that's what we've got right now. We've got the worst president that we've ever had. I agree with you on that. Um, because the thing is, I'm going to share this. We've all heard this before. Some people have said that they don't watch TV at all, so they don't know what's going on. That's what they keep saying. So they must be out of Hollywood. That's the only thing I can conclude, is that they're out of Hollywood. When they say that they have no idea what's going on, they're either lying or they're lying, because I don't believe them, when they just say, oh, they don't know what's going on. And then they allude to that they do know what's going on. But our current president, what he said is, America is so stupid they will vote for him. Now I'm thinking, okay, if you think we're that stupid, what, during his presidency, why not just play along with it? Just play right along with it and make stupid content to put on the internet, because he said everybody is stupid. Now let me tell you something else. He said they cheated. They cheated to get he's trying to make a big deal about President Obama, which means he's deflecting. Then I wake up there and it's always some good, interesting news. I don't see any good news at all. The news is terrible. It's the same thing over and over again every day. It's about Pam Bondi. It's about Pete Hegseth. It's about Kristi Noem. That's not news. They're just repeating the politicians, and it's the same thing over and over again. Because the news that I get, it'll be something about a court in Florida said no to the Supreme Court ruling, and then another court in a different state said yes to the Supreme Court ruling. So once one court system in one state has said yes to putting someone in jail, another court system in another state has said no to putting someone in jail. I don't even know which one of them to believe. I don't believe any of them. I don't believe the news stories. There's always new hot news in my country, sometimes the worst and sometimes the best. Yeah, well, mine has that too. And it's like, well, worst and best is buzzwords. That's what it becomes, as buzzwords. Worst and best, just like good and bad. And, so it's buzzwords, and so in order to get views through media, we've got to use the popular buzzwords, and actually you can hack them. That's what they don't like, is when you hack them. So when you use their words and then you hack them and then you kind of flood out the topic. So I'm not quite sure what happens when a topic gets flooded out at the other end, because, for example, like Mr. Beast, he's just popular. That's all he is just popular. I don't, he's just some young kid. So since things are popular, should Mr. Beast be president of the United States of America? Because the legacy media has made this analogy, and they said, well, where do old actors go when they can't get hired anymore? And they said, oh, they go into politics. And so because the government uses the wording of actors in Washington, D.C., then they make the analogy as like, oh, well, they're actors in Hollywood, and so then they should go into politics. And so they stuck all these actors and entertainment people into the fake news, so when they can't get roles anymore and there's no money for them on TV, they just stick them on the news channels, apparently, is what they do. And so they're just still creating scripted content. But the news that I have that shows up here is rather boring to me, because it's the same darn thing every day. Every day it's the same thing. I don't, it's like, okay, there's a story about surviving roommates in Idaho, a student murders. I don't want to read about that. Why do I want to read about that? That's legacy media. And they're mean to people like me. They just want to cut us out, and they make shitty stories about us on YouTube. That's what they do. They make shitty stories about us. They use clickbait, and they don't want to be honest. They don't even want to talk to us. Presidents shouldn't be popular. Politics is like a boat. You won't put the popular guy in command. You put the pilot in command. Well, that's what I always thought, that you have a joint chiefs of staff. And so with a joint chief of staff, that means that they have a very high position in Congress. And so you have some people in staff that are active duty military, and then you have some that are retired military. Now, the president right now, the way I'm looking at it and the things he's done, this clown that we got in there that's part of the clown show, I would go as far as saying, in cases like this, the president just needs completely stripped of all his rights. Every last right, because that man needs to be in prison. Trump needs to be in prison. And he shouldn't have been able to go on as far as what he did, because the only reason why he ran for president the second time was to avoid jail, because he claims that he has immunity, and he shouldn't be president right now. He really shouldn't. He should be in prison. And that's the only, and so that's what they were saying, is he's trying to say that everything he does in his life while he's president, that he has immunity from doing bad things. I don't think he does. If he fatally harmed someone, that man would be in prison. Let's see. So I'm looking in incognito. Now, the problem with my incognito window is it gives me news. It says local news, and it's still not giving me, it's not give. It says Gabbard once scorned takes center stage with latest Obama allegations. This is boring. We hear about this every day. Then we hear about Jeffrey Epstein. Every day we hear about Jeffrey Epstein. And then Stevie Nicks and Lindsey Buckingham to re-release their rare debut album, Buckingham Nicks. That's boring. I don't want to hear about Hollywood. That's all that's on the fake news is entertainment. By the way, the tariffs put in Brazil will skyrocket the prices of meat in your country, which is really stupid. He is not targeting Brazil. He's targeting I know he's targeting the United States. He's not targeting foreign countries. He's targeting the United States is what he's doing, because he's pissed off about something. And I think he's mad because he had to give up his own companies, that he wasn't able to. That's really what I think, is he's mad because he's had to give up his own companies because he created corrupt companies and he got caught. And so, in this case, you know what they did? They took a criminal and they made him president of the United States of America. They took someone doing corrupt practices and they made him president of the United States of America. The Trump phone. What is the Trump phone? Is that just another version of the what they called the migrant phone, where they said and the Obama phone? Is that kind of the same thing? So I think that, okay, the Obama phone was popular. I think that's what he wants is people talking about a Trump phone, just like people talked about the Obama phone. And it's like, I'm not going to put any weight into it. There's no point for me to put any weight into it, because he just wants to be popular in search engine optimization. I don't even know what that kind of phone is. I mean, I never got a free phone. I never got $5,000 or $6,000 on a card for Social Security on some Flex card. That's a scam. But yet they're telling people you can go on the internet and get all this stuff for free. They were putting it on TV too. It's like, well, who is getting it for free? Because it seems to me that it's more celebrities that are getting free stuff, not the rest of us. So if they're taking care of senior citizens who are celebrities, I'm not being taken care of. Why am I not being taken care of? I'm not getting a free place to live. I'm not getting any help. At the same time, we have inflation. Why am I chopped liver that I don't get help, or why I don't didn't get funding to my original channel? just because I spoke out against something and started telling the truth about what was going on. And then the powers that be just decide that they're going to turn against me because I told the truth about something. Now, granted, yes, I was teaching things at the same time. Well, then you teach someone else how to do it, and then they want to one up you and they want to do it better. But even with that, at the same time, um, there comes a point that they're not going to be able to command those trends anymore. And that's what I see taking place in the future, is that they're not going to be able to command the trending cycles anymore because people on YouTube know how it works. Um, my channel description is not AI generated. No, it's not. What channel description are you talking about? Because I had a, wait a second. Let me go look. Let me go take a look and see what you're talking about. Let's see here. Okay, my channel description is not, it's not AI generated. I wrote all of this myself. My channel description says content creation. Writing text is content creation. Now, I said that on my original YouTube channel that I had. We have a mix of quantum computing, artificial intelligence, human beings collaborating to do things together, different levels of understanding. I am an English domestic engineer major and minor in the United States of America. 10 Light Star 01 likes playing around with artificial intelligence, making AI artwork out of everyday ordinary things, and have for over 20 years. 10 Light Star 01 teaches crochet, fiber arts, basic beginner, quick, easy artwork, such as painting, abstract drawing, sketches with lines, pencils, and pens. 10 Light Star 01 will talk about politics, religion, financials, and medical in a broad and a generic sense. 10 Light Star is not a doctor to provide medical advice, even though I will talk about some doctor stuff from time to time that is kind of lighthearted and, lighthearted, and what's the other word I'm looking for? It's not something I wouldn't, if you feel you need a real doctor, if you need a Band-Aid for something, or you need to put, some basic, antibacterial, I mean, I can say, well, there's this compound, maybe it would work for you. Search engine optimization, organization, YouTube experiences on Google platform, along with feedback on other internet websites. Then I put subscribe for more. So I don't know I'm not sure what you're talking about when you say that my channel description is AI generated, because I did it myself. AI did not do that for me. I did that myself. I get what you're saying, but you refer to yourself as Light Star in every single part rather than it feels like AI. Everybody does that. Okay, let me tell you this. Don't you remember when there was a point that Donald Trump was referring to himself in third person? Um, I'm trying to think what it was that he was saying. So I'm purposely I have a right to be able to use my channel name how I want to use it, instead of saying I. Now, if I say I all the time using the word I, well, what does that do? Then you're trying to get everybody else to use the word I. And so then we just have billions and billions of people writing I instead of their channel name. And so with search engine optimization, I want to use my channel name wherever I can. And that's one of the things I have said related to people who tell other people to change their channel identity. Now, if it's something you completely hate and you learned you've hated it over a period of time, you should change it. But keep in mind that when you do change it, so right next to your little @ symbol, you're going to have to change that in every one of your videos. So if you ever used the @ or your URL in your channel, and Google has told us this, to optimize for your channel, and you can ask to subscribe one time, and then like, well, kind of like what I have in here in my description. So I put, please subscribe for more. And so I put that in there. Give a moment, be right back in less than 3 minutes. Hi, 10 lights, love from Kingston, Jamaica. Citizen world, third world citizen. Have you ever visited Kingston, Jamaica? I was wondering that. I don't think I ever did. I was able to visit Jamaica one time. I thought it was a cool place. And so it has some nice places, kind of like the United States does. And then there's some dumpy places in Kingston, just like the United States, so there was nothing that elaborate to, or that fancy that I saw. It looked like a mishmash of the United States is really what it looked like. I thought Jamaica was fun, though, when I went there. I think Jamaica was more of a, what would I call it? 10 lights, love from Kingston, Jamaica. So I would never tell people to not go, ever. What I have seen is inflation in travel and tourism. That's one of the biggest problems with travel and tourism is inflation and hidden fees. Just like the United States, we've got a lot of inflation and hidden fees. Are we in the Caribbean now? We're going through the Caribbean right now. Let me go over here. Let me go over here to my Google Maps. I love Google Maps with a passion. If Google Maps was a real person, I'd want to get married to it. Doesn't that sound so dumb? Why would I want to get married to a web page? Why would I want to do that? I'm so stupid to say that, I think. Or maybe not. Because I just say stupid things. I do. Wait a minute. You're stuck. Why are you stuck? Okay. Okay, wait a minute. I want to look down here. Cockburn Town, isn't that? That is, I believe, the Bahamas. I think that's one of the islands. I think I've been there before because there was a Sugarloaf settlement, Fortune Hill, Cockburn Town. I remember there being a lighthouse. I remember a lighthouse. Rum Cay Island. Rum Cay. Crooked Island. Snug Corner. Oh, there's a place called Florida. Wait a minute. This is funny. Florida, the Bahamas. Absolutely. There is a place called Florida, the Bahamas, in the Bahamas. And so it's kind of a horseshoe shape. It is on Landrail Point Settlement, Colonial Hill Settlement, Love Bay Settlement, Pinefield Settlement, is Crooked Island, Hard Hill Settlement, Snug Corner, and it's called Florida in the Bahamas. That is so funny. Salina Point Settlement? That is so funny. Oh my goodness. That is hilarious that there... Now, the thing that I learned about the Bahamas is there is like thousands of islands in the Bahamas chain, of the islands. Okay, so where is Jamaica? Jamaica is actually... It is off... Where are you, Jamaica? Where'd you go? Isle Galapagos. Oh, the Galapagos. I always thought I wanted to go to the Galapagos Islands as well. Now, they're off of South America. I was lucky to be able to go to Aruba. I went to Aruba. And where else did I go? There was 2 other places. I went to... I thought there was one that started with a B. I think I went to Curacao. I'm not sure. That's what everybody... I thought it was called Caracos, but everyone called it Curacao. And then there was a third one. What was it? Oh, Bonaire? Yeah, Bonaire. I think we went to all three of them. That's what I was thinking. I know I went to Bonaire and Aruba. I loved Aruba. Totally loved Aruba. Savanetta? What's Savanetta? I loved, oh my gosh. They got a Santa Cruz in Aruba. Now, if you remember, Aruba was, I'm not going to say anything about it because we're trying to get away from all that stuff. I was trying to find Jamaica. Oh, there's Jamaica. There you are. Montego Bay. Yeah, I liked, there was some things that I did related to naming, when I was doing my artwork, I was naming my artwork after cities in the Caribbean. That's what I was doing. I was naming my artwork after cities in the Caribbean because of the copyright issues that I was getting. So it always got me to thinking, now what can I do to deviate away from copyright issues related to legacy media? And then I started looking at the regular traditional pattern people as legacy media. And I thought, okay, well, I'm going to change my crochet patterns and call them something else. So I actually made a hat called the Kingston hat at one time with my crochet. Now, not everybody's going to know that. A few people are going to know that, maybe, but not everybody. So I named it because I went to Kingston, Jamaica. I don't know if I went. Did I go to, I don't know if I went, I know I went to Jamaica. I don't know if I went to Kingston though, but I liked the name Kingston. And so I named my hat Kingston, but I don't know what part of Jamaica I went to. I don't remember right now because I think I wrote it down, but I don't have access to any of my vital records. That wouldn't be considered a vital record, but I had diaries and journals and things like that I was keeping at the house that I was at. And so I just don't know what part I went to. If I went to Montego Bay, I could have. Maybe it was Montego Bay, but I'm just not sure. Well, let me look and see if I can figure out where I might have went. If I can find where the cruise ship docks are at, because I don't know how many they have. Maybe they have more than one because it looks like a pretty big island. Jamaica cruise terminals. Okay, let's see where they're at. Jamaica cruise terminals. Okay, all the cruise, it had to be Montego Bay. That had to be it. Oh no, there's cruise port Jamaica. There's a cruise port over there on that side of the island. Falmouth. Falmouth is where we were at. That's that's the one. Okay, that's where we docked at, was Falmouth. Falmouth. I knew if I looked that I would figure out what part of Jamaica I went to. So that was it, and I enjoyed it. I had a lot of fun there. Now that I can, I have to take and kind of separate things that were really negative, and that's what I'm doing, is trying to separate it and remember it from my perspective by myself, and try to not remember, and try to just exclude that bad, negative, dark force out of my brain. And that's what I'm working on. But yeah, I had a lot of fun going to the islands, and sometimes I wish I could go again. I really do. I wish I could go traveling, and I had money to go do things and to go on a cruise ship, and but I don't want to. The thing I don't like though is all the fighting. It sounds like they have people who are fighting on the ship. That doesn't sound like fun. The fighting on the ship. What is this? There's some rocks here. If anybody knows, oh my gosh, is that like it looks like, what is this? This is on Jamaica. It is Trelawney Parish, Jamaica. And there's a bunch of rocks. Let's see if I can find out what that is. There's got to be some history there. Trelawney Parish. It looks like a foundation of something. Let's see. Trelawney Parish, Jamaica, Jamaic. And you know what? I do not believe that. I don't believe that there are voodoo forces out of any of those islands. I don't believe that at all. There's people who will say that. Churches will say that here in the United States, and there's pastors who will say that there's voodoo forces. I don't believe in any of that because you know who's doing the trickery and stuff? It's the pastors. The pastors in the United States who are saying that there is negative energy and dark forces out of Jamaica and the Caribbean island and that they're cursed and all that stuff. They're the ones that are just being mean and anti against people in Jamaica. I never believed that at all. But I had to work through that myself, because for a while I was mad at my second husband. He was the one I was mad at. I wasn't mad at anybody at all, anybody else, because he's the one who did the dirt to me. And then I started getting kind of mad at the pastors, though, too, because then I would hear pastors from Jamaica talking bad about people in the United States. Then I would hear the pastors in the United States, which is what I hear now. They're not as bad as the people doing the Christianity. I don't want to hear any of them. I really don't. I don't want to hear any of them because they talk much worse related to what's the word I'm thinking of? It slipped my mind. Related to what is? Oh my God, anti-Semitic. The church pastors are very anti-Semitic. Listening to the church pastors. Now, this has nothing to do with the people of Jamaica, but I'm targeting specifically when I say Caribbean island pastors, that Jamaica or whatever, and the ones in the United States and Florida who are claim to be Christian. They are anti-Semitic against each other, kind of equally yoked, and so they're slinging nasty, nasty comments against each other. I don't believe in voodoo. Now, I did hear a Christian pastor recently say he doesn't believe in voodoo either. He said it's just all in your brain and what you believe. And I always believe that way myself, that you can scare yourself. You really can. And when you've been raised in Christianity to believe that there's another God or something higher out there that's going to get you if you do something wrong, that's instilled in you. That's how I think. It's instilled in human beings to be scared because someone instilled that fear. It's the God installation fear that's installed in human beings. And so it's like I'd like to take the voodoo of people being scared of voodoo away too, because I don't believe that voodoo does anything. So let's think of voodoo similar as religion. That just because you saw someone have a voodoo doll and someone poked needles in it and they're calling it someone else, nothing is bad is going to happen to the other person. Nothing bad is going to happen to that other person because it's more of that church stuff that is a bunch of lunacy. Because the church people are lunatics. If you want to see a bunch of lunatics, it's the church people in the United States. I'm just expressing my opinion. I'm not telling people you can't go to church because one day I might want to go to church and just hang out with some people because I have a feeling that the churches are going to be really, really different in the future, if they even exist. I really think the churches are going to go out of business. A lot more churches are going to go out of business in the United States because people like being around each other, so it would be like a community center thing more than anything. But they don't want to hear a bunch of loony nonsense, worshiping this being. And that's what voodoo is. So it's all based on magic and what they call black magic. And the thing I'm thinking is related to the settlement. Maybe somebody from the past called it that. It's like nothing bad is going to happen. I don't care if a guy from Jamaica is on YouTube preaching his message. It's like, but maybe he could tone himself down a little bit, maybe. I don't know. I don't care what message he preaches. I never did care. That's his business. That's his channel to believe what he wants to believe. But if he's actually trying, and there's Christian people who do the same thing that they do. They want people to just believe their way. Well, they're getting money. So if they can get people to donate money to their church or to their voodoo cause or whatever. um, Now, voodoo is not even a church. It's just something that people said about people in Jamaica. I don't believe there's anything negative. That's just like saying about the Bermuda Triangle when they had those movies on TV and they were saying it was cursed. One of the last cruises I took, it was so much fun. I had to make the fun myself because my marriage was in a world of hurts. And I'm glad to be out of it. I am very, very glad to be out of it because it was like a dark force of oppression being over me just in the marriage in and of itself. But one of the last cruises that I went on, it could have been the very last cruise that I went on, maybe. Um, the ship, this was fun. The ship made a triangle, a straight triangle, which I know we didn't go in a straight triangle, but they put on the ship TV, they always put our path on, and they made a triangle. And I remember taking a picture of it, and I thought it was so funny. I think I might have put it on Facebook, and it was of the triangle, and I thought, well, this is rather appropriate. We went from this point to this point to this point. We stopped at three different places, and we made a triangle of the Bermuda Triangle because we went to Bermuda. That was the whole thing. We went to Bermuda and we made a triangle. And I thought, this is kind of fun. They're kind of poking fun at the Bermuda Triangle. And we always heard, I was kind of scared because of all the Bermuda Triangle movies they had on TV at one point. I was kind of scared of actually even cruising anywhere because I was thinking, well, what is all this stuff with all this bad things happening in the Bermuda Triangle? So when I was a kid, I would hear about all these bad things happening in the Bermuda Triangle. Well, if it wasn't for social media and YouTube and the internet, my brain would still be stuck with the nightly Monday night movie or the nightly Wednesday night movie, thinking about the Bermuda Triangle. My brain would just kind of be stuck in that. Well, bad things happen in the Bermuda Triangle. Well, then comes along social media and they add a little bit more context to things and some educational aspects. And so what they're adding in is, well, back in the day, we didn't have as good of communication and predictions of the hurricanes and gale force winds and storms and things like that. So doesn't it make sense that the ships would actually disappear? Well, the thing is, yes, it does. Yes, my husband was abusive, Benicia Luckman. He was very abusive, physically abusive. They say too much about Bermuda Triangle, but the thing is that there's a lot of traffic there, and there's an increased rate of accidents, more accidents, less traffic, and less accidents. Well, yes, that's with anything in tourism. The same thing on the Virgin Islands, because the Virgin Islands has as much traffic as Bermuda has. And so you see that with the cruise ships, because when one of the things they always said is that you're putting cruise ships that are the size of a city that have anywhere from 5,000 people on the ship. The average size is anywhere from 3,000 to 5,000 people on the ship. And so when you have five cruise ships, like the Bahamas on one of the main most popular Bahamas cruises, um, and I've seen 5 and 6 cruise ships in the port at the same time. Well, that's at least 15 to 20,000 people that they have offloaded onto those really tiny islands. And so that's the same, the United States is a little bit larger, but at the same time, the United States You can still crowd out and make a place really horrible with all the people that gets off of the ship on a daily basis, or that does tourism in an area. So you can put a bunch of money into an area, but then in the down season, then there's less people. So like the people who benefit from it is more or less the city governments and the county governments. Maybe the federal government a little bit. But yeah. And yeah, he was very abusive. My ex-husband was very abusive. And so that's why I'm really frustrated being left in the situation that I'm left in. Yeah, and there's no help at all for me to get help relating to a place to go. I was in the house for a year after the divorce ended, and then they gave him the house. And that's what didn't make sense to me. It's like, well, why is it that he got the house? Why did he get the house? Why did they let him out of jail? He's a violent offender. They let him out of jail and made me homeless? Um, and so even on the ship too, it was almost like this is what I felt. Someone on the ship, I felt like someone on the ship knew what was going on, or they were listening, because there was on one of the ships. I'm going to share this with you too. On one of the ships, we were sitting in the Lido deck one night. Oh, it would be a joke to call it the libido deck. Not the Lido deck, but the libido deck, because that's usually where all the majority of the swimming pools are at, and the eating places is on the libido deck, which is the Lido deck. But we were sitting in one of the dining rooms at night, and he was really mad at me. He was getting mad at me for some reason. I couldn't figure out why. I don't know if it was the day that I wore something. I wore an article of clothing. I was covered up completely with the clothing, but he told me, he said that he wasn't, there was this guy who actually said, "Oh, I really like what you're wearing." Well, it's a controversial topic. Let's just put it that way. It's a controversial thing in media. And my husband happened to hear this guy say that he liked what I was wearing. He was irate. And I'm thinking, I am old. This guy is young. Why are you getting, I couldn't, he's like, "I am not going anywhere with you. I'm not going to be seen with you anywhere on the ship anymore if you keep wearing what you're wearing." That's what he told me. I'm not, you just as well plan on the rest of the trip by yourself. Well, I should have kept wearing what I was wearing so I didn't have to spend any more time with him, because that's how I was feeling at the time. He was making it so miserable, and he was arguing all the time. And now the irony of some of this too is there was a little old man down the hallway. He wasn't as bad, but he was mad. He was talking about he didn't want to pay tips. Um, well, the young man was not rude. I didn't care that he said it. What, because I was covered up. Okay. What I was wearing was a leaf, and I had a hat that had a leaf on it. Now, it was a controversial type of a leaf. And I didn't see anything wrong with it. I thought it was kind of fun. He was just commenting because it's like it's been something that's been in media about making this particular leaf legal. And so yes, that's what it was. Yes, Venetius. That's what it was. And so but it was almost like he was jealous more than anything that the guy was giving me attention. And so the guy giving me attention, he could have been maybe 10 years younger than me. And so my husband was upset because for that reason. And so I had actually worn what I had on other cruises before. But it's just like as my husband was aging, he was getting more and more angry. I mean, because I don't know why he was just getting angry about things. And so he was always saying too that he didn't care about paying tips, but the other man down the hallway, when the door happened to be open, and I was walking past, and there's this little old man, this little white guy, and he's like, "I don't want to pay tips. That's too much money." He's carrying on to his wife that he didn't want to pay tips, and I'm thinking, I was so much bad. I wanted to go in this man's room and say, "You don't have to pay tips. I will go to the front desk and make sure that you don't have to pay the tips." But my husband, on the other hand, he was kind of like the thing of, "Oh, well, I make enough money, and you should feel fortunate that you have the money to be able to pay the tips." So that's the kind of thing was. And so the cruise ship did not care. Now, what my husband had told me, I had a hat that had a marijuana leaf on it. And so he told me, he's like, well, when we went to go on board, he says, "I don't want you wearing that hat going through the cruise terminal." That's what he told me. "I don't want you wearing that hat going through the cruise terminal. Otherwise, they're going to think we have drugs." And I told him, I said, "Well, you've got your prescription medications." "Oh, that's different." And I said, "Oh, is it really?" Now, what he had done, he had taken his drugs out of the prescription bottles that they were in. So he didn't, now the cruise lines, I don't think they think about this when they're giving people instructions. Because usually police or other people will, typically what they will say is that to keep your pills inside of the bottle that they come in so that they can see they're a prescription. Well, he takes his out, so he didn't want to take his pill bottles on the ship with him. So he put them in the 7-day container. And so he had his pills done out for the whole week, so he didn't have to take the prescription drugs with him. So there wasn't, getting on the cruise ship, there's absolutely no identification that the drugs he has are actually prescribed from a doctor. And not only that, though, when we got off of the islands, they had pharmacies on the islands, and what they were saying is that you could just go get whatever drugs you want to get from the islands and then get back on the ship, because they said on the islands it was legal. In the Bahamas, it's legal. So how they do things is there's other drugs that are legal in the Bahamas that you don't need a doctor to get the drugs for. And so it was, I don't know what they were, but they had them like penicillin. If you needed penicillin or something like that, they would just give you penicillin. It wasn't a big deal. So if you needed penicillin for some infection or something like that, you could just go get penicillin without a doctor's note. Oh, but I know what the part that I didn't tell you about was there was this lady. So we were sitting in the cafeteria. I got a little sidetracked and derailed. But we were sitting in the cafeteria one night. And so he was getting more upset again, and he was kind of yelling at me about, he was like, "I don't know what you're thinking about wearing what you were wearing." I mean, he was carrying on. "I don't know what he was going on and on. We were talking about something else too, and I can't even remember what it was because it wasn't that important. And he was making a big deal about it, because they were doing all the gaslighting on TV and stuff like that. And so he loved watching MSNBC, and he loved the gaslighting that they were doing on MSNBC. And the more they did that, the more worse he got on me. And, because they were gaslighting all the time. And he would take it out on me. And so he was doing it on the ship too. And so sometimes it seemed like there was some people who would come around. They would just come around, and, they were kind of like paying attention. And sometimes it kind of seemed like they wanted to come and talk to me. And sometimes it seemed like they wanted to, but they really didn't. So it was almost to me like I was getting some comforting eyes from people that they were suspicious that something was going on, but they couldn't actually directly talk to me. And so anyway, we're sitting in the cafeteria, and this woman comes over, and so she's she butts in the middle of the conversation because she overheard him from another table and he was raising his voice at me. And so she butted in, and she kind of reminded me, she sounded a little bit like Ellen DeGeneres a little bit. I thought, but she had on a hat too. She had on a hat, glasses, kind of curly hair a little bit. And so she grabs a hold of his hand, and then she's talking to him and just holding on to his hand. And I didn't care, you know, I didn't care one bit that she was holding on to his hand. She was maybe, I think she was probably really close to my age. And then she grabs a hold of my hand. So she's in the middle and she's holding both of our hands. And then she's talking about some of the things because he was getting mad because I was talking about chemtrails. Yeah, he was getting really, really, really upset because I was talking about chemtrails. And I didn't think it was a big deal related to the chemtrails because the thing I was thinking is that, well, it sounds like they're spraying saline in the sky. It's not necessarily a poison, but it's saline, and we're calling it chemtrails. So it was something for us to make videos about. And there was even a military video of the pilots saying that they were spraying the chemtrails out of the back of their airplane. I thought it was kind of funny. I thought, wow, they're giving us ideas to make new content about. You know, it doesn't have to be just the same thing over and over again. And so I started kind of going in another direction, you know, so I had something to do in the summertime because what I was seeing is like, well, if I make alien videos and space videos and imagination videos and I do all this stuff in the summertime, then maybe I can be like the other YouTube channels and be tied in to more topics so that I'm not just a small niche because I was losing views. And he knew I was losing views. He was getting mad at me because I wasn't making as much money. So I couldn't give him as much money to pay for things. So he was getting mad at me because he was only getting like $18,000 a year in his retirement. That's all he got. So, and this was before he applied for Social Security. So he was getting $18,000 a year just from a pension that he had. He had two pensions from his first job. He didn't get pensions from any of the other jobs. It was just from his first job that he got pensions. And so he worked for that company for like 27 years, I think, 28, something like that. And he had two pensions. And so one pension was like $15,000 a year. The second pension was like $3,000 a year. Relationships shouldn't ruin money. Otherwise, it's not really a relationship. Well, I'm not sure what you're saying there. Relationships shouldn't spin around money. Otherwise, it's not really a relationship. Well, that's one of the biggest problems, though, is that some people go into relationships for the money and for the benefits that they can get. And that's what I was thinking related to my second husband. And that's why I called myself the capital gains bride, you know, which AI had actually said they think is a kind of AI kind of viewed it as in a precocious manner of kind of like a green card bride, green card visa bride. And that's how I used it. And it even used the analogy of a trophy wife, you know, so a man who goes after a woman for some alternative reason. And, you know, even though they may not make a whole lot of money from it, because I'm thinking, well, you know, $3,000 a year is a lot of money, actually. So if you're trying to keep your own money and let's say you're making $80,000 a year and you don't want to give it to the government, then it does make sense that you would do what was that other word that I had called it? There was another word, which is rigging, which is where they purposely lose money. And that's what was going on. They were purposely losing money Um, okay, I think I wrote it down on my channel. Was it haystacking or capital? Okay, this is what I wrote yesterday on my main channel. I put, when a wife becomes a capital gains tax write-off, capital gains bride, 1,500 per year, married filing single, the alternative is 3,000, married filing jointly. The wife becomes a commodity as an asset for tax break incentive. Capital gains is dollar for dollar. Where you have a private business and you make a purchase for your business, you don't get dollar for itemization. Yet in traditional IRA, you get dollar for dollar capital gains losses. The losses, they call them capital gains. Oh, that's it. Capital gains harvesting is what I was thinking. So with capital gains harvesting, they purposely sell. So the losses, they call them capital gains harvesting. They purposely sell low to get losses and capital gains harvesting by selling low, which gives them losses on purpose. So they said there's companies who will do that. It almost sounds like shorting a stock. It sounds almost identical to shorting stocks, where they make money, so they make the money off of the government. Even though it's not as much money, they make the money off of the government. So they sell the stock low, and then they get money from the United States government. And so it's like it's manipulation is what it is. Capital gain, shorting a stock and capital gains harvesting, that's manipulation of the stock market. That's why I always question, why do we even have the stock market? Why do we have the stock market? And I'm thinking now, Jerome Powell, on the other hand, I've questioned, like, what is the purpose of the Fed? Now, the Fed is to try to regulate inflation, but we just have inflation year over year over year. Well, that's not the fault of the Fed chair. That's the fault of the private sector. Now, there was a story yesterday that said Donald Trump wanted to get rid of Jerome Powell, and he wants to get rid of the Fed chair. Well, if you get rid of the Fed chair, then you don't have a canary in the coal mine to tell the country that we have inflation. And so I'm thinking, if anything, the United States government, I would think, would fortify in some way to have maybe a secondary Fed chair of some sort. Maybe I don't know. I don't know if each state, I'm thinking even each state could have a Fed chair. Where a Fed chair, a governor's Fed chair or something like that in each state. Yes, it would be job creation of the government. And then each individual state then can actually look in their own state related to things where they have inflation individually in their own state. But Donald Trump is completely against, he's anti-government. We have an anti-government president in the White House right now. He's anti-government. Hollywood has always been anti-government. And when they bring people from foreign countries, they're anti-government too. $3,000 a year is nearly the minimum wage in your country. Well, what do you mean the minimum wage in your country? Like, you mean that's what you guys make per year is $3,000 per year? Like, okay, are you in the United States? Or I don't remember where you're from, Vinicius Luckman. Minimum, Brazil. So then what do you mean minimum? So you get $3,000 an hour? Is that what you're saying? $3,000 an hour? Oh, a year. Oh, you're talking about annual. Yeah, you're talking about an annual pay. So, I mean, and so it kind of makes sense to me when people from Brazil and El Salvador are saying that they're having a hard time and they're looking to the United States, because that's what I've heard is people say they're looking to the United States for some guidance because they can't get by. And so that's why that's why they've come to the United States, or someone has brought them to the USA, because of the fact that the United States is inflated in price. And it sounds like Brazil, if they're trying to do some trade, I think I talked about this morning. If they're trying to do trade and they're trying to do negotiations with the United States, they can't do it because the United States has such a strong dollar. It's a strong dollar on the world market. It's not strong for the American public. The dollar, um, the dollar the more valuable the dollar is on the world market, that means even in the United States, our buying power is less because the companies just keep raising prices on us. So this means that the countries around the world are raising prices on us. Well, they're comparing the American dollar to other countries around the world too, such as Europe, because I know when I lived in Europe, the Deutschmark was actually stronger, or no, the American dollar was stronger then too, because sometimes we could get 2 Deutschmarks for 1 American dollar, which meant that we had, so the American dollar was stronger than the Deutschmark, and then they went to the euro. I don't know how that factors in with the exchange rate, but at the last I looked, it looked like they were kind of even with the American dollar. So when they went to the euro, um, they lumped a whole bunch of countries in together using that dollar system, and it was closer to the American dollar then. So then this means that countries like Brazil would have to reset their currency, and then they would have to have their own Fed chair, and then they would have to, like, I mean, I don't know. I've yet to figure out if I'm right related to the purpose of our Fed chair in the United States. I don't know. I have no idea. But I think he's more of a person who virtual signals to inflation in the United States and around the world, because the private sector just keeps raising prices, and then other countries just keep raising prices on the United States. It's like if that's how the trade deals are going to work, they do sound like bad trade deals. They really do. So, however, now keep in mind that Donald Trump is involved with phones and clothing and retail, and it's a fact that they mark those prices up by 1,000% sometimes when they ship them into the country. So I still think that there's a great possibility that Donald Trump is lying when he says that the tariffs are the cause for prices going higher. Now, so he's blaming tariffs for something that his companies are doing and the other companies are doing, because on Shark Tank they said they purposely raised the prices of clothing and food and stuff like that. But on the other hand, when he keeps doing the tariffs, this means that some stocks on Wall Street will drop. So this means that they lost money. Then they get a capital gains at the end of the year. They lost money. Then look how many years they get a capital gains. They get a capital gains of $3,000 if they're married, $1,500 if they're not married. Now, it may not be a lot of money, but the individual people get that money as a tax write-off, and it's dollar for dollar. So I was going to type something, but what the hell? I noticed there is a pregnant man emoji. Yeah, I've seen that too. Is that a man? It kind of looks like a man, but I was thinking it could be a woman. Um, is it? Let's see. Yeah, I don't know. I thought maybe it was a woman, but I can't really tell. A pregnant man, that's funny. Let's see. Let me copy and paste. Oh no, well, it didn't go in there. Uh, or is it fat? It could be fat, but the way it's holding its belly, it does look like it's pregnant, but I also see breasts. So maybe it is a man. Maybe it's a joke emoji. I've seen that before, but I don't know if I have it in mine. I don't think I've seen it before in my emojis. Let me look through here and see if I have any in here. Um, so our economies are messed up here in the United States and with inflation because so the thing that I noticed though with the president is when he wants to get things off of him, he will tell a truth. Um, Related to some things, so he starts talking about tariffs as a distraction, as though he's doing a favor to the American public. But at the same time, we do have inflation and inflation around the world. That's a fact. And Nancy Pelosi said that too. Now, we don't hear from her as much anymore. The economy in your country is also messed up. The inflation is like around 6%. Um, yeah, I think in the United States that ours is about the 6% as well. I think ours is higher than that. Some have actually said 9%. They have put because what they're saying, a lot of these economists and experts are saying, is that the United States has different inflationary things going on at the same time. So we can't just lump everything in together and say, oh, we have 2% inflation or we have 4% inflation. Some sectors are more inflated than others. So for example, like with medical, we do have a really high percent of inflation in medical. But I think what they do is they average it out to 4% or 6% or something like that. They just average it out and then they say, well, this is how much inflation we have, when really it's probably higher than that. So not all, so it's like when you dollar cost average something, and that's what they always recommended. The gurus were always saying related to Wall Street is that you dollar cost average things in your portfolio. And so then if you're in a sector that performs very, very poorly, then the other sector will do better. And so then you can hold on to those stocks poorly, and then you just wait until the investors start investing in that sector again. But who knows how many years that will be? Otherwise you're just stuck. So that's why they say in a down market you can do consumer staples, and consumer staples is food, because then you're going to make money in the food sector, because consumer staples is apparently inflation is taking place in that too, unfortunately. So consumer goods in your country is 14%. Yeah, I believe it. Um, and so that's probably why Venezuela and Brazil, why they do what they do, and they let the coyotes go down there and bring people into the United States. I'm wondering if that's why they're doing what they do. Um, I mean, because like the American public, we can't actually control inflation. The only thing we have is to contact our politicians and tell them that we don't like inflation. But the thing I was thinking, that's what Occupy Wall Street movement was about, was inflation. Prices just going higher. But then the American public, just the only thing the American public says, a lot of people, they'll say, well, that's how it's been and that's how it's always going to be. Well, if that's true, well, how in the world do we expect people to live? And I talked about this morning. What I'd said is, well, if they raise prices higher in the United States, now listen to this part closely. This is the part that is an aha moment that was for me, that I thought about earlier today. So, You keep raising prices higher, you can launder money into the United States from other countries. So if you're a banker and you have some assets, then you've gotten some money and you don't want to pay taxes on it, then you can just kind of sneak that money on in either through the internet or through cash, bringing it in the United States and launder it on in because prices are getting higher. Now, if we lowered rent down to $50 a month, $25 a month, they can't launder the money in as fast. Now think about that. This, for me, it was pretty powerful to kind of think about that. So they can't launder the money in as fast if rent's only $25 a month. Or Switzerland. Switzerland is a great place to launch. Yes, the Swiss bank accounts, you've heard about them. You've heard about the Caribbean bank accounts and the Caribbean. Well, that's what they call the offshore money. That's where money is made offshore. So the Caribbean, they have banks. They probably have money there. And somehow, something related to Jeffrey Epstein might come out of this. Jeffrey Epstein might come out of this because he was in the Caribbean on Epstein Island. Oh, I already saw the thing about Jeffrey Epstein. I think what they said his island was he bought it at $7 million, and then in 2019 or after his death, the island was assessed at like $63 million. It was something like that. His island was assessed at $63 million. And so that means that the value of his island and his estate and property and everything on that island got more valuable. So either there's money, so if you wanted to launder money through Epstein Island, that means there's a lot of money on Epstein Island for some reason. Now, what makes Jeffrey Epstein's island more valuable? And so, someone was saying that $7 million for him to buy it at $7 million was pretty cheap when he bought it. I think it was back in the 80s or 90s or something like that. But then in 2019, his island was around $63 million, which they're saying that still was pretty cheap. I don't know if it was ever developed into anything, or maybe that was the plans that they were going to develop Epstein Island into another tourism destination, which is a great possibility. They could have as a private island, or maybe they already were doing stuff as a private island, because when you keep things private as a private island, you can still launder money through the private island by saying that you're having private booking tours. And so if Epstein Island, there's a great possibility. Maybe they were just saying they were having private booking tours for rich folks. Oh, this is another aha moment. So they had a list of people who was going to Epstein Island. Okay, this makes more sense now how they were laundering money. So if you're on a private island and you have all these dignitaries and kings and celebrities going to your island, that means it costs a lot of money to cater to them. And so if you have a private business, then you want to be charging them, $25,000 a night, I guess. So if you're charging them on your private Epstein Island $25,000 a night, then you got money coming in, but you're still on a private island. And so if you're on a private island in that region, I know the United States has partial control over some of the Virgin Islands, and they will tell us that. They've told us that they are American-owned islands, which means they're American property in the Virgin Islands. So that means that the United States has property in the Caribbean. offshore. So I'm not sure how that would work. So if Epstein Island was an American island or if it was a foreign island, because if it's an American island, he was in like Flynn because of the fact that he could just say he's having all these people staying on in his island, and then like where's the bank? Where is the legal authority on an island that you own in the Caribbean? So you're down there. Oh, that's what someone raised this issue the other day. They said like related to the United States military. Well, heck, all you got to do is send them overseas and then they can do all the testing and experimentation on the troops and people they want to do far, far away from Congress. And they I mean that was their novel idea for sending the United States military off to war because they don't have any oversight of Congress anymore. They're just gone. They can do whatever they want. There's no oversight from Congress anymore. And so that's the same thing related to Epstein Island. So Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein were basically best friends, it sounded like. And and so if you have a big old island and it's designated United States, it would be easy. So the money's already American money that you're getting paid. Now, the only thing that would happen is you'd have to transfer the money. If someone gave you money that's from a foreign country, you would have to transfer it, or the island is fitted with a lot of Wi-Fi, and so the money comes into Epstein Island, and then it's payment in kind for services related to rich folks goes through the island, or kings from other countries, or even they just bring the cash and drop it off on Epstein Island, and then they take it by boat from Epstein Island, a private boat. Nobody's watching. Congress is not there to pay any attention to what's going on Epstein Island. I mean, so that's just like the scenario they gave of the United States military and sending them off into the Middle East so they can do whatever experiments they want to do far, far away from Congress. Congress is not going to go to the Middle East to be oversight of the military. They can do whatever they want to do. Same thing on Epstein Island. He can do whatever he wants to do, and they can launder as much money as they want to launder through Epstein Island. I mean, really should have they could have valued Epstein Island. I'm thinking more at like around maybe $500 million. Now, if I was appraising Epstein Island and I was a really good money launderer, I would have given it a value of more like $500 million, not no 63 million. But I'm thinking by giving it a value of only 63 million, keeping it lower keeps it further off the radar of the government. So if you keep the value of the island lower, it's that thing related to property and that where people will want to keep their property a little bit junky so that they don't have to pay as much in taxes to the government, because the government tends to assess a higher rate on property that looks nicer. And that's true. That's a fact. So they look at your property on the outside. If it looks dumpy and junky on the outside, they give it a lower value because it looks dumpy and junky. So I guess they just assume that you're keeping a dumpy, junky house on the inside, then you don't have to pay as much in taxes. Now the thing is, if you ever decide to sell it, it might be a little harder to sell it, but it's going to be sold at a lower price though too, unless you fix it up enough. If you want to put that work into it, where someone wants to buy it. Otherwise, you're selling a dumpy, junky looking place for a lower price. However, you can keep it, and even inside of the United States, you can launder money through it. I mean, oh my gosh, if you bought an abandoned hotel, it would be the most ideal place to launder money through a hotel. Easy peasy. You could have someone coming into the ports. I mean, the Coast Guard is not going to look. They're not going to stop every boat. They're looking for drugs. They're looking for drugs, and then they're looking for, they might be looking for people who are bringing in items that you would have a tariff fee on them. So if you're bringing something in for a store, but typically money, if you have money hidden in the hull of a boat or something like that, or even the gift cards that they had on the cruise ships, because I'd often thought, well, heck, you could bring Visa gift cards from a foreign country on a cruise ship because the cruise ships had all those cards that were the reloadable gift cards and things like that. And so what I'd said is you can actually put all of them on a cruise ship. You can have reloadable Visa cards. You can have foreign money on those cards, bring them into the United States, and then they're on the cards. You can still use the cards, but the money has just been brought into the United States, and so you slowly trickle that money out into society through the gift cards, and you didn't pay taxes on them. They're just Visa money cards that have money on them. They were from another country, but because it's on a card, it just easily transferred. You didn't have to do it with a foreign exchange service. It's just, the exchange rate, yes, they might be a little bit different, so if it went on at one price in another country and it took 30 days to go from Switzerland to the United States, the exchange rate might be a little bit different, but now you can still use that in the United States because it's on a card, and you can avoid having to get dollars out from the bank. Because if you were using a I don't know, is it still a Swiss franc or is it a euro? I don't know. If Switzerland uses I think, wasn't it called a franc at one time, the Swiss franc? Let me look and see is Switzerland using the euro? Is Switzerland is not part of the European Union, and as such doesn't use the euro. Okay. What's the currency in Switzerland then? What is the currency in called? It's the Swiss franc. Okay. So it's still the Swiss franc. Okay. So you load up a Swiss franc on a bunch of Visa gift cards, and you go on a cruise. You go through Norway and you take your cruise on over to the United States, and you got all your gift cards on the ship, and then you get all those gift cards off of the ship, and you can use those interchangeable cards in the United States, and you have brought your money into the United States via gift card, because you just got a bunch of stuff on gift cards, and you have avoided the United States government altogether related to paying taxes because it's on a gift card. Well, now what do you do with that? Well, you give a bunch of people the gift cards in the United States. That could be migrants at the border. You can also give them phones too if you want to. They're going to need to communicate with each other because on the cruise ships, they do give them phones. They have given them phones because they're employee phones. How else are they going to communicate with each other? Because that's what they use on the ship is ship communications, so they give them phones. I don't know if they get to keep them or not. They're but they are under contract. They're employees of the cruise company. Epstein was messed up. And so this takes me to, okay, so if the cruise companies go out of business, does this mean all the migrants are just left on the ship? Now, if we remember, Carnival has had several incidents of the people on their ships just being stranded at sea. And so, now what they've said is that, when they have bad employees, they just dump them off at the last port that they were on. They just leave them there. They get rid of them there. They don't help them do anything because they're getting fired. And so that means if they're in the United States, they have bad employees, they just dump them off in the United States. Well, how does that work? You would think they would call the police or something. That's what I would think. But I'm thinking if a cruise ship goes out of business, Do they just abandon the ship with all the employees on the ship? Is that what happens? Getting stranded at sea is not a problem if the trip isn't too long. I wouldn't want to be stranded at sea. Well, where would they evacuate to? Because if they don't have a captain of the ship anymore, or the say that the captain of the ship has just abandoned the ship and has gotten off and left all the employees on the ship. So when the ship doesn't have any power, now the ship has stabilizers, and then even the engines of the ship kind of tend to stabilize the ship a little bit from rocking. So the ship is just left, when it's abandoned, it's just left to float on its own accord, which means that the ship can actually list. And so they have stabilizers, which are a couple of little fins they said that they put out, especially during rocky seas. They put those stabilizers out to try to keep the ship from listing too much from one side to the other. So if the seas get really, really rocky, they will put out the stabilizers on the ship. They get other boats to evacuate the employees, and the people get a tugboat to pull it back to port, and then they get smaller boats to exit the people. Yeah, I have seen that before, but I was thinking in the event that the cruise company just goes out of business and they just leave the employees, because the employees, they count on that money to send back to their family to the islands that they're on. And so that's what they've been doing when they do that, is that the cruise industry, which is travel and tourism, has become very, very popular. And so so they are actually funding other countries, but with the cruise industry, they do not use fins in cruise ships. They use ballast tanks and computer controlled. Oh, the ballast. Well, I just call them fins, though. With ouch, a ballast. Let's see, ballast, a ballast. Okay, it gives stability to a ship by putting a heavy substance into the bilge. Huh. It's inside and the fins are outside. Oh. Well, I don't know. All I know is they called them fins. On the ship they call them fins. And well, let me see if I can find something. A ballast on ship. What Oh, that's interesting. The bilge, when they run things through the bilge, what they're doing is running water through the bilge. They're actually putting water through the ship. Well, that's crazy. They're running water through the ship? Oh, yeah, that's what it looks like. It looks like they're running water through the ship to try to, so there's not a big list. So they might run more water through one side than the other side, and then they let it out at the front. So they're literally adding more weight to one side or the other of the ship to try to keep it stable. Well, they didn't tell us that. They didn't tell us that part, that they're stabilizing the ship by actually flooding the ship with a ballast. A ballast overview. Let's see here. That sounds scary, but it probably works. It makes sense to me. So ballast is inside and fins are outside. Like there was an incident 3 years ago. Then they inserted an extra zero on the total value, and the whole left ballast got filled with and the ship flipped. I didn't hear about that. That's kind of scary. But when I look at the ballast, I mean, that makes sense. They're filling, and I know they said they have a bilge pump. The bilge pump, I think even small boats have a bilge pump on them. And that's to pump the water out when water gets inside of boats and things like that. Yeah, I didn't hear about that related to the ship almost capsizing, or did it capsize? It flipped the ship, so it capsized the ship. But I know where was the place? I don't even remember where I went to. There was one place and there was a hurricane that was a tropical storm that was starting. Regrowth inside the ballast tanks. Okay, and this is on Wikipedia. Okay, after developing their cargo, empty commercial ships need to take up water from the port of arrival in order to maintain stability and ensure safe navigation conditions before heading back to the port of departure. This water, called ballast, which contains aquatic organisms typical of the port of arrival, is stored in the ballast tanks and is ultimately discharged at the port of departure when the ship is ready to be reloaded. During this process, aquatic organisms capable of survival in the ballast ship are released into new environment and can therefore become invasive species, causing serious economic and public health. Oh my goodness, I didn't know that that was a problem related to ballast water discharge. Oh my goodness. So that's another problem with how they do that with the cargo ships and the commercial ships. Following the ratification of the International Maritime Organization Ballast Water Management Convention, commercial ships will have to treat their ballast water in order to comply with maximum discharge standards established for organisms in different sizes. I never thought of that because they would be picking up a lot of small fish and things like that in the ship that would survive. But smaller ships just use weights on the bottom. Oh. So then the cruise industry is kind of like lying to us then. If they use a ballast, they're using a ballast instead of a fin, which the cruise industry was telling us that they were using a fin to kind of stabilize the ship, instead of basically what they're doing is doing the ballast and the bilge pump and filling the ship up with water to try to stabilize it when there's high seas. Huh. That's interesting, though. So they're talking about they want to put something inside of the ship to treat it so that those organisms don't come from out in the middle of the ocean to the shores. Both phytoplankton and zooplankton have been shown to be capable of surviving in ballast water tanks for up to 23 days. There's also evidence showing that different phytoplanktonic organisms can regrow within 4 to 20 days to incubate in favorable conditions. Bacteria that survive treatment have an even higher potential for regrowth, and they benefit from the death of the other organisms in two different ways. Nutrients essential for bacterial growth are released into the form of dissolved organic matter, and there's a decrease in the number of predators that would otherwise eat them. Overall bacterial growth has been observed after 18 hours to 7 days of applying different treatments. Therefore, the scientific evidence currently available supports the idea that it is not an issue of if regrowth, but when regrowth. Well, they can use pumps to also stabilize, but it's more expensive to run. Yeah, I'm sure that it is expensive to run. Alrighty. Well, I've been on here for 2 hours and 4 minutes, and so I think I'm going to hop off for right now, and I'll I might be back on later, maybe not. But I think I should think of another funny video to make, another funny short. I do pretty good making funny shorts. That do get watched, and I'm proud of myself for doing that. That's kind of fun to be able to make shorts and get views from the shorts. Oh my goodness, what have we got here? We've got President Trump delivers remarks and signs executive orders. And this is a live YouTube video, so they're talking about President Trump again. They're trying to push out President Trump for some reason. I don't know why, but they are. They're pushing out Trump again. But at least some of the things that they got him talking about is kind of similar to what they got on TV right now. And so, where in the past, during the election, it was kind of like what they were putting on TV was completely different from what we were getting on the internet. And right now, they're kind of close with the things they're talking about. So, I don't know, there was kind of a weird disconnect and an imbalance that was taking place. And Google has some good new games up here too. Yeah, bye. We'll see you later.